What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo NBA Strategy Show. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, Adam Scherer. And, well, this is the first day of a new schedule. Happy to have everybody with us. What that means, I'll tell you. Shorter NBA Strategy Show. We'll still have your regular NBA Live Before Lock, which at this point, especially on a day like today with Giannis Antetokounmpo, a little bit of ambiguity there, uncertainty with his status. You'll want to tune in for Live Before Lock for sure. But Adam and I are here. We're going to get you ready, going up till 10 a.m. Eastern time. And then MLB Strategy Show will take over, followed by, and you'll want to stick around for this one, the first NFL Strategy Show of the season. It'll be Sal Vetri, Ben Rasa, and myself. It's going to be awesome. So we've got a laundry list of shows coming up straight through the 12 o'clock Eastern time hour. Adam, how you doing, man? Football's finally back.
Yeah, really excited for football. Obviously, should be a fun time of year. Football, playoff basketball, baseball still going on. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, after 5 months of nothing, it's nice to just be inundated with a ton of games. But let's dive right into it. We only have a limited amount of time. But given that it's 2 games, I think we'll be okay. Let's kick it off with Miami and Milwaukee. The Bucks. I looked at this last night. Bucks were 2-point dogs. They're getting 3.5 points now. 217.5 total. Giannis has still not been ruled out yet. So, again, uncertainty surrounding his status. Last game, and let me set the table for you a little bit here. I'll let you run with it. Last game, Giannis played around 11 minutes. Middleton ended up playing all but 8 seconds in the second half plus overtime. I don't know why I don't know why he came out. I don't know if his like shoe broke or something. But, he came out for 8 seconds, played 48 minutes in total. Had a monster usage rate, 36 points, 8 boards, 8 assists. Eric Bledsoe, obviously, a lot more involved in that game as well. We'll start with the quote-unquote home team here with the Milwaukee Bucks. Another do-or-die situation. Every single game here on out is a do-or-die situation, Adam. And right now, we still don't know what's going on with Giannis. I'm leaning he'll be out, but I still don't know. Last game was pretty discouraging given he came in, was already questionable, went to the locker room, came back, took the free throws, then never came back after went to the locker room again. It was a tough go for him, but they got the W in overtime.
Yeah, and Bud said after that game that Giannis was legitimately questionable to play for that game. So it's not like, I think, at least for me and probably for a lot of people, kind of just assumed that it was just lip service, that he was questionable and that he was fine. He said that there was a chance he wasn't going to play that game. Then he got hurt. I'm assuming he doesn't play, but obviously we'll get that news later. If he doesn't play, last game you had DiVincenzo start the second half and start overtime. So my assumption is that DiVincenzo will get the start and become a really solid value just based on the fact that it's a 2-game slate. There isn't much value, and he's $3,500. But obviously the big bumps go to Middleton and Bledsoe. Since the start of last season, Middleton's played 10 games without Giannis or Malcolm Brogdon, and with Bledsoe, he's averaged 1.37 DraftKings points per minute, 32.5% usage rate, 23% assist percentage. The rates are obviously really good. The one concern, and it's not that big of a concern given that Middleton is priced for Giannis to be in, but it's something you and I kind of talked about after last game. I expect it to be totally different for Middleton with the Heat having come into this game plan for Giannis to be out, as opposed to last game where they were Giannis to be in and then suddenly Giannis wasn't. So I do expect them to be paying a lot more attention to Middleton, kind of have a better plan in place to defend him. So, probably less efficiency. But again, at his price point, which doesn't really factor Giannis being out, he's still going to look like a great play.
I'd be pretty shocked if Eric Spoelstra doesn't make adjustments, which is what you're saying here. I'm with you. They have played Milwaukee really well all series long. Let's for a moment just assume that Giannis is in. I want to make sure we cover this as well. His production in this series definitely has lacked at times. And in game 1, his shot volume was way down. But outside of that, I will point this out. His usage is only down around 1% from the Orlando series to this series. One thing I don't love is in that Orlando series, he attempted almost 13 shots within 5 feet of the rim per game. This one, he's attempting less than 9 field goals per game at the rim. But the thing is, you take that 11 minutes he played last game, and it's really not going to be that far off. So looking at the box score, looking at the results, there's definitely the notion that, well, Giannis has not played as well, and he hasn't. He's shooting what 50. He shot 50%, 55%, 33% in these games. He's attempting a decent amount of 3-pointers, which has a lot to do with his inability to get to the rim. Bam Adebayo's done a phenomenal job of protecting the paint. If Giannis does play, and I don't think he does, but if he does Bud even run him out there for 40 minutes? Middleton played 43 minutes in regulation last game. It's so hard to see Giannis being able to do that given his current state, unless he heals quicker than anybody else in the world. Right.
It's the only way I really get to Giannis if he plays is if ownership is really low, because obviously it's a 2-game slate. If you can get Giannis at 6% owned or something, then it becomes interesting and you're willing to take all those risks. But there is a lot working against him here, and it's not like he's priced down. He's still more expensive than he's more expensive than Davis. He's $100 less than LeBron on DraftKings. And you have a solid team defensively in Miami. Granted, I think that, like you said, it's kind of overblown how Giannis has struggled here. Like, even from a DFS standpoint, obviously he wasn't good in game 1. Game 2, he was okay. He had 53 points, 60 fantasy points in game 3, and then was averaging like 2.5 points per minute in his 11 minutes of game 4. So I think it is a little bit overblown how much he struggled. But it's a tough matchup. You have obviously re-injury concerns. You have Budenholzer concerns. Is he going to say, okay, 30 minutes of Giannis is better than 0 minutes, but he can't go full run like you were saying? There's going to be a lot of question marks here, even if he does play. So I'd really have to be getting low ownership to get there, given all the concerns and also given roster construction issues, because the value is just going to be thin on a 2-game playoff slate.
So, okay, if he's out, where are we going with Bledsoe and Middleton? Obviously, we have to start with them, and we can work our way throughout the rest of this lineup. You mentioned also that DiVincenzo got that start in the second half with Giannis out, and that's pretty significant as well. He's 3,500, played 27 minutes in this game, following up on 21 minutes the game before. Not going to be a high-volume shooter anyway, but where do we go with those 3 players with Giannis looking like he's probably trending to sit this game? And if he does, that means he's legitimately injured, because game 5, as big as a game as you're going to get, you'd really want him on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, if he sits, it obviously just opens up the door for a ton of stuff from Milwaukee. Touched on Middleton's numbers, and obviously he would look like a good play. Eric Bledsoe, though, in those 10 games with Middleton and Bledsoe without Giannis and Brogdon since last year, he's actually averaged more fantasy points per minute than Middleton has. Bledsoe's at 1.44 DraftKings points per minute. He would be I'd like Middleton a lot, but I would actually, given salaries, prefer Bledsoe, especially because I think that Spoelstra will adjust to do what he can to slow down Middleton. And, I think he would rather Bledsoe beat him than allow Middleton to beat him. So I expect Bledsoe would have more opportunities, and he's really done well in these situations before. So they would both look like priorities, but especially Bledsoe at his salary. But then, we mentioned DiVincenzo. You also get more minutes for George Hill, who's 4,400 in the second half last game. He played about 8 minutes in the third quarter, 9.5 minutes in the fourth quarter. So it's like 17.5 second half minutes. Plus he played all of overtime. You're getting a bunch of minutes there. It would really just open up so much here. Even Brook Lopez has averaged over a fantasy point per minute without Giannis and with Bledsoe and Middleton. So I think that it would turn into a situation where you're just rostering a lot of Bucks guys.
Okay. Top options from the Bucks right now?
Assuming Giannis is out, Bledsoe, Middleton, and then for the value, you're looking at DiVincenzo, Hill, to a lesser extent, Marvin Williams.
Brook Lopez has played a ton of minutes over the last 2 games, 38 minutes in that game 3 loss, and then 42 minutes in the game 4 win. He has been, I don't want to say a huge liability. I think that might actually be a little bit overblown. I was looking this up earlier. In this series, a matter of fact, I guess it would be the semifinals. Yeah, in the conference semifinals, there's no team attempting fewer shots within 5 feet of the basket than the Heat, only 18.5 per game. So it's not like they're getting everything they want at the rim. They've just been efficient pretty much everywhere. Does Brook Lopez stay on the court again for 38, 40 minutes in this one?
Yeah, I think you get a lot of, I think you get a bunch of minutes from Lopez. I think that, like I said, he's averaged over a fantasy point per minute. The reason that he kind of goes overlooked, like even when you talk about the team, I didn't really touch on him, is that he's basically priced the same as Bledsoe. And on a per minute basis, Bledsoe projects better. Middleton obviously is the number one offensive guy if Giannis is out from this team. And then you talk about the value opening up with Hill and DiVincenzo. So it kind of leaves Lopez as like the fifth guy, even though he's also still a good play if you're expecting, 36 plus minutes at around a fantasy point per minute.
On the other side of this one, you've got the Miami Heat looking to put the Bucks away. Again, they're laying 3.5 points here. I think they probably finish this one off, Adam. I don't know where you stand on that. Last game was pretty much the last gasp from the Milwaukee Bucks. They took them down in overtime, but one possession game. It wasn't convincing. Granted, Giannis was out, but it looks like that could be the case again today. Let's start with Jimmy Butler here. He's been pretty spectacular. Last game was underwhelming. The peripherals weren't there. And to be fair, there's been a lot of Jimmy Butler statistically that hasn't been as good as I think he's actually played. He's having a phenomenal real life series and a pretty good fantasy series. What do we do with him now that his price is up to $8,500 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel you've got him coming in at $8,300?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens to his ownership if Giannis is out, because I think if Giannis is in, then at $8,500 Butler looks like a really solid option, especially because him individually, he looks good at that price. You expect around 36 minutes. You expect him to have the highest or second highest usage rate on the team. He'll be involved as a facilitator. He has a 26.7% usage rate in the series so far, and that all looks really good. But if you take Giannis out, then you're bumping Middleton, who's at the same price point as Butler. You're bumping Bledsoe, you're bumping all these Milwaukee guys, so ownership will go there. It has to come from somewhere, and I think you'll see Butler's ownership go down if that's the case. And I think that it should. Like, those guys will project better than Butler, but if the ownership falls, he works as a tournament pivot because he still obviously has 50 plus fantasy point upside. Like, if you take Giannis out, Middleton will project better than Butler, but there's still going to be a high percentage of the time that Butler outscores Middleton. So you'll want to pay attention to the ownership, make sure it doesn't get too out of control. It would be a spot to look to where maybe you can go like Bledsoe and the Milwaukee value and then play Butler over Middleton and be somewhat contrarian.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Looked like my connection was a little unstable there. I didn't want to repeat from last week. Put you out and hang you out to dry again. So let me see. So we got our ownership update about 15 minutes ago. And we have Giannis projected in. So we have to pay really close attention to that throughout the day. Middleton's still projected for quite a bit of ownership. As it stands, Jimmy Butler getting like 26%, which on a 2-game slate is not that much. How do the rest of these Miami players factor into this? We'll start with another higher priced guy in Bam Adebayo. Going to get a lot of minutes. He has not been a high usage guy, and he shouldn't be. We understand that. It's never really going to be, 30% usage Bam Adebayo, but he's rebounding at a stellar clip against this Bucks team. Double-digit rebounds in 3 of these 4 games. He's a good playmaker. Bam Adebayo, I think, underrated in terms of his ability to move the ball and facilitate. 8 assists last game. And also somebody that can get pretty easy baskets around the rim, but you're never going to see him stepping back from 18 feet, 25 feet. Is he worth paying up for today? Because he's $8,700 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, Adebayo is power forward eligible at $85, the most expensive at the position. It's getting a bit pricey on him.
He's really come a long way since he was a guy who just got putbacks off of his own missed layups, and that was.
Yep, I remember.
But yeah, so as far as Adebayo goes, he's another one that I think will depend a lot on what happens with Middleton or with Giannis, because if Giannis is out, you're just allocating so much salary to this price range, going to Middleton, going a little bit cheaper, going to Bledsoe. Butler obviously would get some ownership as well. It would be a lot harder to get to this price point at $8,700 BAM. Whereas if Giannis is in and it's driving Middleton's projection down, and it's, you know, kind of a normal game like we've had so far in the series, then Bam will look like a really good play. Like Lofty said, he's rebounding really well in this series. Usage is around 17.5%, but rebounding percentage is up at 20%. Assist percentage is up at 22.5%. He's been really productive. He's averaging 37.5 minutes per game. Bam will be a really solid option. It's just a matter of how easy is it to get him into lineups, and a lot of that depends on Giannis. And really, I think that theme holds for the entire Miami team, because, you know, you move past Bam, you get to Dragic at 7,200, kind of the same thing. You know, if Giannis is in, the Milwaukee team is priced correctly and there's not a lot to get to there. And so it opens up spots in your lineup to go to Dragic, who is up there with Jimmy Butler as far as usage goes. So far in this series, Dragic has a 25.5% usage rate, 24.5% assist percentage. He's been really good. He's averaging 35.7 minutes per game. It's a good play. It's just, if there's all this value taking up spots from Milwaukee, it's going to get to be harder to get to Dragic unless you're thinking like from a relatively low ownership standpoint. So, you know, Giannis really just is going to affect everything here, especially as far as the mid-range guys go with Butler, Bam, and Dragic. I think looking, you know, to the cheaper guys a little bit, you know, Crowder, Hero, Robinson, even these guys are going to be affected, because if Giannis is out, you get the value from DiVincenzo, you get the value from George Hill, and they're going to look like better value options. If Giannis is in, then you're still talking about probably 34 minutes from Jay Crowder, who had some early foul trouble last game. But other than that, you know, you're expecting around 34 minutes from him. He'd be a decent option, but his salary's come up to $5,800 on DraftKings. You have Tyler Hero at $5,300. He's someone that I am interested in. He's still closing games. He played 33 minutes last game, including overtime. Didn't play particularly well. I think only had like 22 DraftKings points, but he's going to get the opportunities. He's been closing. He was closing against Indiana. He's closing against Milwaukee. So I think that Hero at 5,300, especially if Giannis were to play and we lose that value on Milwaukee, looks like a good option, especially because the ownership probably won't be too high on him. Duncan Robinson's tough to get to just because he is losing closing minutes to Tyler Hero. Iguodala, Olynyk, none, just not getting enough minutes to really matter here. So I think kind of to recap the game, it obviously just all depends a lot on Giannis. If Giannis is in, Milwaukee is pretty much correctly priced, and there's not a lot that really looks good to me there. Giannis obviously would be a huge risk himself due to re-injury, due to the tough matchup. And the only real way that I would get there is if ownership's really low. The Miami side, kind of the opposite. If Giannis is in, I think Butler, Bam, both look really, really good. Dragic, to a lesser extent, looks good. Tyler Hero looks good. If Giannis is out, it downgrades Butler and Bam, not because of anything to do with them, just because the plays from Milwaukee are going to look a lot better. So obviously a ton of news there. Fortunately, it's the first game on the slate, but and we'll have that news hopefully a while before lock when Luffy and I come back for live before lock later. So a lot depending on Giannis there. Going on to the Lakers-Houston game, I have the Lakers as 5-point favorites right now, 114 total. Houston 109. You have the price on Giannis or on LeBron's come up a little bit, 11.2 on DraftKings now, so he's actually $100 more expensive than Giannis is. Obviously, you should get a competitive game here. Houston won game 1. The Lakers won game 2 by 8. You had LeBron play 39 minutes last game. You're expecting 38 to 40 minutes here. Same goes for Anthony Davis, who played 36 last game, but typically is going to play in that 38 to 40 minute range. Both obviously look really good options against a fast-paced Houston team that will look to get out and run. You'll get LeBron in transition. They don't really have a matchup for Anthony Davis. PJ Tucker obviously is strong and he can defend Davis in the post, but Davis is such a good player that he's going to mostly get what he wants. So both of these guys look really good. They'll be easier to get to if Giannis is out because of all the value that opens up on Milwaukee. So, again, just kind of a trickle-down effect from Giannis. But those are going to be your two priorities. One of the best values on the slate, regardless of Giannis, looking at Rajon Rondo, who in game 1 played, I think, 24 or 25 minutes. I was a little bit concerned about his playing time in game 1 because Alex Caruso was in foul trouble, and I didn't know how much of that factored into Rondo's playing. But in game 2, Alex Caruso played 26 minutes. Rondo played 29 minutes. You saw Kyle Kuzma only played 20 minutes. Danny Green KCP only played 25. You actually had Caruso and Rondo closing over KCP, and Dwight Howard was not in the rotation. JaVale McGee saw Frank Vogel go to a smaller lineup, and it gave more minutes to these backup guards with Caruso and Rondo both playing 25 and 28 minutes respectively. So $3,900 for Rondo looks like a great value. Obviously not the best real life basketball player, and you can talk about whether or not he adds value to this team, but he does produce from a fantasy standpoint. And so with or without Giannis and the Milwaukee value, Rondo is going to be a great value option here. You also have some value from Danny Green, from Caruso, from KCP. I would be setting rules not to get more than like two or maybe three of these guys in a lineup, because you know that Davis is closing, you know that LeBron is closing, and then you're basically going to get three of Caldwell Pope, Caruso, Green, Kuzma, Rondo closing. But the guards kind of do eat into each other a little bit as well. So I in a perfect world wouldn't have more than two, but especially if Giannis is in, you're going to get most of your value from the Lakers with Rondo specifically, but then also taking shots at Danny Green, at Caruso, at KCP, even Marcus Morris, who played 22 minutes last game. And I do buy into that because, again, Dwight Howard played 0 minutes. JaVale McGee played 6 minutes and 28 minutes in the first quarter. He played 1 minute and 33 seconds in the third quarter. So he finished 8 minutes. You went small here. It opened up the door for Markieff Morris to play 23 minutes. So you're getting a lot of value from the Lakers. It's just a matter of kind of how you're going to prioritize it because of, waiting on Milwaukee news, basically. So, a lot of value coming there. From the Houston side, obviously, Westbrook and Hardin both playing now. Westbrook's salary keeps coming down. He's down to $8,400. He played 33 minutes last game, expecting him to get around 34, 35 minutes here. He's not as productive, of course, when Hardin plays, but the price point is getting to where Westbrook looks like a pretty decent value. Again, especially if you have Giannis in and Middleton isn't projecting as well. Westbrook would project right in that same range as Butler and as Bam. So I think that Westbrook looks like a good option, just a matter of how much you're going to be able to prioritize him. Harden, I think, will be tough to get to. His salary really hasn't come back down since Westbrook came back. And now you have, maybe Giannis, but you also have Davis, you have LeBron. So I think most of Harden's value will come either just as a low-owned tournament play. He was 7% owned last slate, or as a game stack where you get to him and then get to some of that Lakers value. So I think Lofty's back.
Yeah, how'd you do on your own there? I know it's a short show, but
a lot better when I'm not trying to make lineups at the same time.
Fair enough. My internet was fine. Zoom crashed and wouldn't let me back in. So thanks, Josh. Appreciate you, man. He's always there waiting in the wings to come in and help out.
Except for last time when I messaged him and said, "Hey, can you help out?" And he said no.
Where were you?
Wrapped up the Lakers, was like just finished talking about Harden and Westbrook.
Okay. Yeah, the fact that the Lakers treated Westbrook like he had an active case of COVID last time. I was amazed by how much space they gave him. Do you think that happens again today?
Yes, because let
me rephrase it. Do you think D'Antoni allows that to happen again? He was clearly frustrated that this offensive system he built for Westbrook never to be put in that situation was heavily, or it just completely, it fell apart.
I think so. And the reason Kenny Smith actually was touching on it last night, and I agreed with what he was saying, like he was showing basically, they were just freeze framing Russell Westbrook with these wide open threes. And his point was, sometimes you just have to take the wide open threes, but basically that Westbrook just has to be better at kind of his awareness, because there were some times where you had like Alex Caruso in the paint, and in that case you can still, it doesn't matter if you're packing the paint, just go at Alex Caruso. Other times it's Davis, and you're gonna have to take that three, and obviously Westbrook's not a good 3-point shooter, but to some extent I think it was kind of on Westbrook that he wasn't kind of doing everything that he should have done there. So I think that it's still, I don't think that it's like a foolproof defensive system for the Lakers. I think that Westbrook can beat that, and I expect them to do better here.
Instead of just closing this out with, and we can hit on a couple of these individual players to finish this, but I want to ask you kind of an all-encompassing question. I think one that's going to be really important for building lineups today. If you watched last game, you'll know why this question is important. But how do you see how do you see the flow of this game playing out? So what I mean is, at points, the Lakers were doubling Hardin, and they were giving wide open 3-point attempts to a Houston team that can usually knock them down with pretty high frequency. In the first half, Houston was missing a ton of wide open threes. In the second half, third quarter specifically, they started hitting all of them. Then it looked like Frank Vogel began to make some adjustments, didn't allow them to penetrate, and also kept it, spread the defense out a little bit more, so you weren't dealing with a situation where you had guys wide open for corner threes, above the break type threes. Do you see Vogel's adjustments do you see them being able to parlay that into another convincing win today? Because there was a totally different story between the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean,
Jordan, you're not muted. Go ahead.
I think, what they did in the fourth quarter obviously worked well. I expect to see more of that. But again, it's probably just something that, kind of changes in game, like you were saying. You don't want to leave the Houston shooters wide open unless it's Westbrook. But you also obviously don't want Harden to beat you. So, I think you probably just see adjustments again within the game. So far for the series, Harden has a 32.7% usage rate, which is down a little bit. So, I think you'll kind of probably just see more of both.
Okay. Outside of Harden and Westbrook, do we look towards the Robert Covingtons today, the Eric Gordons, who played 36 minutes last time out, Daniel House played 27 minutes, and then PJ Tucker? You pretty much all know we all know what we're going to get from him on a daily basis, mid-30s in minutes, and then once in a while he'll have a really impressive game like last time, and then kind of come back down to earth. But he has not been that bad recently. He's sub 5K. So I figure we can round it out with these role players for the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I think it's another spot where, everything just depends on Giannis here. The Lakers value, I think, will end up being solid value kind of regardless of what happens with the Bucks. Not quite the case with Houston. Like, I'm going to be a lot more interested in $4,900 PJ Tucker if I don't have other value to go to. He's not someone that I'm like clamoring to get into my lineup, but he has looked good. He's really playing with a lot of effort on the offensive end. You're seeing him kind of just duck under people and then come up and get offensive rebounds, and he's looked really good. Daniel House at 4,100, I think, again, he's going to get some open threes because he's not someone that the Lakers are going to really scheme to, not get the ball. So if he's going to play 26, 28 minutes at 4,100, he's going to be a pretty decent value. Jeff Green would be someone where you're not expecting much out of him because the minutes have kind of evaporated again, but we know that he's capable of having those games where he just kind of goes off and takes over, and there's nothing stopping him from stealing minutes from any of the guys ahead of him in any one particular game. So he would be, kind of similar to like the Norman Powell that we talked about yesterday, where he's probably playing around 20 minutes, but if he's playing well, or the guys ahead of him get in foul trouble, he can play more and really break a slate open. So I think that, those are guys that you'd be looking at in tournaments if there's not better value. But if you have DiVincenzo, if you have George Hill, you're not going to be as inclined to go to Tucker and Green. And
close it here. Do you agree that Rondo should be the highest owned player on this slate coming off of that big game last time out?
If Giannis is in, yes. If Giannis is out, still wouldn't say no. Just think that there's obviously a lot more competition for that. But I mentioned it while you were gone, but I am a lot more confident in Rondo now than I was going into game two, because in game one, you had Caruso in foul trouble. So I wasn't completely sure what Vogel's plan was when Caruso's not in foul trouble. But then last game, you saw them go small, play a combined 8 minutes between JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, who played 0. So you got those smaller lineups where Morris got more minutes, but also you just had more of Caruso and Rondo playing alongside each other. So I am confident that that's the route they're going to go and that the minutes are going to be there for Rondo.
Okay. We might have to make this like 45 minutes or something. 30 minutes is pretty short. So we'll figure that out. I know it's only 2 games, but you can get a little long-winded here trying to break these down and touch on everything from each game. We appreciate you guys hanging out. Thanks for bearing with us during those technical difficulties. Josh Engelman, appreciate you. Coming up next, it's the MLB strategy show and NBA Live Before Lock. We'll be back today, 5:45 p.m. Eastern time. No, that's wrong. It'll be back at 5:30, right? 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, a full hour here. And then MLB strategy show at 6:30. But coming up next, you got Jake Hari and Terry McBride taking you up till 11, where the NFL strategy show, the inaugural NFL strategy show for the 2020 season, kicks off with myself, Ben Rasa, and Sal Vetri. Stick with us right here on the Awesemo.com YouTube channel. We'll see you back here soon.